Institute in recognition of his role in the growth of the Institute and West Africa generally. The decoration was performed by the President of Sierra Leone, Ernest Koroma, who is an alumnus of the Institute. Our State House correspondent Chukuma Unekwuse reports.
Ahead of the Federal Executive Council meeting and the ECOWAS summit, Nigeria's president was at the threshold here to receive his Sierra Leonean counterpart, Dr. Ernest Bai Koroma. The visiting Sierra Leonean president entered the presidential villa at about 9:50 in the morning into the warm embrace of his host. Some photo shots, and they made straight into the president's office. Much later, they joined the ministers into the council chambers for a brief but significant ceremony. It's not all the time that a visiting president attends the council meeting, and so what must have informed this one?
We are giving this honor to Nigeria because of the leading role Nigeria has played in affairs in West Africa, particularly in the support that we have provided in the establishment and the functioning of the West African Insurance Institute. I am here today as a result of that support.
He also took time out to decorate the president. Responding, President Jonathan says he is honored to serve as the grand patron of the Institute. He described the insurance industry as needful in the transformation agenda of his administration.
Recently, I appreciate the leadership and members of the West African Insurance Institute for your kind gesture and for the good words we just heard from my brother and friend, the President of Sierra Leone. The insurance industry is an essential ingredient of economic growth and development all over the world. Government recognizes that the insurance industry absorbs our risks and frees us to be creative, innovative, and focus on life's many challenges and objectives. It is in this regard that the federal government provided the lead by ensuring that its entire employees are fully insured under the group life insurance policy in Nigeria.
The visiting president and other alumni are hopeful that the conferment of this honor on the president will spur him to continue to provide leadership, not just in the West African sub-region, but the entire African continent. Chukuma Onwekusi, Channels Television News.
The Federal Executive Council has set aside the sum of 50 billion naira from the 2013 budget for the execution of constituency projects across the country this year. Now, briefing State House correspondents after the council meeting, the Minister of Information and Communications, Mr. Labaran Mako, said that the money is part of the 100 billion naira budgeted for that purpose. Also discussed was Nigeria's human rights status, with the Council noting that the country has made progress in the enforcement of human rights in the country as required by the United Nations. Now, a director of the defunct bank PHB, Professor Pat Otomi, says the takeover of the bank by the Central Bank of Nigeria and the trial of its former managing director, Mr. Francis Atuche, is unjust. Professor Otomi made this assertion while testifying before Justice Latifat Okunu of the Lagos High Court. The Economic and Financial Crimes Commission had charged Mr. Atuche, his wife Elizabeth, and the former chief financial officer of the bank, Mr. Uguanyawu, with a 27-count charge for stealing the sum of 27.5 billion naira belonging to the bank. Our judiciary correspondent Shola Shoyele reports.
Former Managing Director of Bank PHB, Mr. Francis Atuche, has opened his defense. His first witness is the Professor of Economics and a former Director of the bank, Professor Pat Otomi. In his testimony before presiding Justice Latifa Okunu, Professor Otomi says that he is convinced that long before the takeover of Bank PHB, there was a plan by some public officials to steal the bank. According to the witness, the plans were so strong that petitions on minor infractions in the bank were even reported to the late President Umaru Yar'Adua. After the change of leadership at the central bank from Professor Charles Soludo to Mr. Sanusi Lamido, Professor Otomi said he was told that if Mr. Atuche was removed as CEO of the bank, the move would be acceptable to the central bank and Bank PHB would be left intact. When asked who gave him this information, the professor mentioned that it was the CBN governor, Mr. Sanusi Lamido. This information, Professor Otomi testified, was corroborated by former presidential spokesman Segun Adeniyi in his book, Power, Politics and Death, a front-row account of Nigeria under the late President Yar'Adua. The professor also says that he was a very close friend of the CBN governor until he started to speak out against the injustice of the system. The witness testified that he believed Mr. Atuche was being prosecuted owing to the desperation to take over the bank. For Professor Otomi, the move for the takeover was hatched after the bank allegedly failed a series of distress tests in 2009, despite having grown its fixed assets from 25 billion naira in 2004 to trillions of naira in 2007. So strong was the bank, according to the witness, that the CBN in 2009 even invited it to help rescue Spring Bank, which was distressed at the time. Justice Okunu has, however, rejected a move by counsel to Mr. Atuche, who sought to tender the minutes of a board meeting which the witness attended and which ratified some loans granted by the defendant, loans which the EFCC had alleged were phony. Professor Otomi will continue his testimony on the 16th of September after the court's annual vacation. Shola Shayeli for Channels Television News.
And staying with legal matters, the Lagos State Governor Babatunde Fashola has applied to withdraw the suit he instituted against Governor Jonah Jang of Plateau State over the chairmanship position of the Nigeria Governors Forum. Governor Fashola, through his lead counsel, Professor Yemi Oshibajo, sought leave of an Abuja High Court to allow him withdraw the legal action against Governor Jang. But counsel to Governor Jang told the court that it's too late in the day for the Lagos State Governor to bring such a motion. Hearing on the motion has been fixed for September the 9th, 2013. Well, plans are in place in Delta State to set up proper legal structures to reduce the effects of climate change. At a forum on territorial approach to climate change, the state governor, Dr. Emmanuel Uduaghan, pointed out that the structures are necessary for the people to key into the green economy initiatives of international agencies.
Communities run over by floods in 2012 are again living in fear of the same fate this year, following the latest predictions of heavy rains by NIMET. If disaster struck in the previous floods, there's no telling what will happen in the next couple of months, as NIMET says the worst is yet to come. But the Delta State government is not resting and is looking into various ways to avoid yet another disaster. One of the first moves is this forum, which aims to look into the territorial approach to climate change. The permanent secretary of the Ministry of Environment, Dr. Felicia Adu, gave an overview of the effect of climate change on the country.
There are beginning to be distortions in the weather patterns. The farmers don't even know when to plant now and when to harvest because the pattern is changing. It's beginning to affect our production in agriculture, and it could lead to food insecurity.
There were also comforting words from the state governor, Dr. Emmanuel Uduaghan, who emphasized the need to put up proper legal structures that will make the environment more people-friendly. Some years ago, the state government signed a memorandum of understanding with the United Nations Development Programme and is also in partnership with the private sector to produce environment-friendly products and create other employment opportunities.
We are going into partnership with Philips to deal with the issue of trying to lower our energy usage. Now, they had come and they had done an assessment, and they found that we use over 5,000 megawatts of electricity in the places they did the assessment.
This is part of the government's